Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Supernatural Inc. Network and Mariner of Spirit. I'm Greg. I'm your host, and tonight we have another great guest, a lady that's been around for quite some time, as far as I'm concerned, because I've had her on before, and she's a wonderful lady. Before we get into her, we're going to go ahead and mention a few things. And the first thing is that the people I support, and right now we're down to one, and we have possibly two more coming, but that is Potographs with Tim Miley and his wife Lauren. And they do a wonderful job every year fundraising for animal shelters and pets. And the thing about their fundraisers are concerned is that it's mostly all paranormal, and the people that they have, the guests that they have, speakers for these events, are usually top notch. Everybody that you thought you never meet, you're going to run into one or two of them at one of their events, and that's the way I've come to know them, is the fact that they're that good, and they do a great job, and it's just amazing, and the other thing that I want to mention is authors, and these are people that have been on the show, and I'm going to have to add a name tonight for sure. But we can start out with Bruce Holliday, Tobias Wayland, Adam Benedict, Kathy Kressel, Barnaby Jones, Sherilyn Cotter, Dr. Heatherly Langdon, Lynn Monet, Ron Iacovetti, Victoria Munday, Tony Rathman, Natalie Jones, Patty Negri, Sylvia Schultz, Amelia Cotter, Rex Nielsen, David Sloan, Christina Bloom, D.A. Wysong, Joseph Hallant, and Dr. Rebecca Foster. And the name that we will be adding on will be none other than Karen Dahlman, who is, in the same context, our guest tonight, who is a fantastic lady who has been working with Ouija boards for quite some time, and I would say she's like the queen of Ouija boards, if you want to put it that way. But I'm going to bring her on now. Here's Karen, and it's amazing to have you on finally. I apologize that it hasn't been sooner. I know that the way things go, and we go off in different directions, and we're just, sometimes some of us spin out of control. And that's where I'm at. And then we're going to have a co-host tonight to help really with the questions. And her name is Carol Garcia, and she's a member of our group, and she does an amazing job. And to start it off, I haven't seen you in quite some time. I want to say maybe 3.5. Has it been 3.5 years? Maybe 4.
Seeing me?
Yeah.
I think it's maybe two or three. Yeah. I think it's been
Three?
a couple, two or three. I could go back and look on my website. I list all the different shows I've been on, and
Okay.
I'm thinking where I was living at the time, and so I think it's 2 or 3 years. But yeah, it's been a moment. Yes, it has
It's
been,
been a blink.
and it goes by so fast, right? And I want to say
Right.
thank you for having me back on and for the
Oh,
invitation. And I look forward.
I wish it would have been sooner.
Thank you.
But there's a lot of people out there, and the subject matter that you're known for, and now you've become quite an author. So you're going to be added on to the list of authors because you've been on the show, and that to me that's something because it sort of gives a sense of knowledge to the people who watch the shows. As far as the people, they're not just fly by nights. These people are people that put all their heart and soul into what they do, and you are one of them. So to start it off, question wise, I've always, the last time we were on, we were talking Ouija a little bit. And I know that, I don't have any more boards than I had back then when you were on. And I think I told you I had two of them.
Yep.
And I got them in an auction with the Booth brothers.
Oh yeah, right. I remember this. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And they've sat in the same identical spot they were when I put them there, when I first got them. So I haven't really, I've opened them up for one or two people just to show them the boards and the planchettes. I have one that lights up.
Oh, I know which one you have. Uh-huh.
And it was something that I wanted to get two or three more, but it never happened. So I'm going to just leave it with what it is. Have you and how have you done? You have quite the collection, correct?
I do. I have 85 boards right now, and that constitutes not just Ouija boards, but talking boards, spirit boards. And I have boards that are actually handmade by people that have sent them to me, friends and people that I've met over the years. My favorite board is the Ouija board. Behind me, I have two. The original one I received in 1973, the small one, and the bigger one's from the 1950s. It's a William Fold board, and I got that more in the last 20 years, added to my collection because I do love Ouija boards. And just so you know, and I know that the board that lights up, that's a Ouija board. I believe it was made by Hasbro, and it's clunky. It's kind of clunky and kind of sticks to the board, if I recall. There's two versions of that. One came out later, it was better, and the first one was really clunky. And there's an older board back from the before World War II that came out that actually lit up when the planchette went over it. It's a metal board. I know you don't have that one. There's only a few in the world left, and my friends have those. The collectors from the Talking Board Historical Society have that. I think it's all that's left in the world of those. But yeah, I love the boards because, especially the Ouija boards, you can see how they changed over the years. The symbolism, the size, the shapes, the planchette, what kind of greetings were on it, what kind of images were on it, the moon, the sun, that all changed over the years. And so you can really look at it from an artistic perspective of how the artwork changed on the board. Now, I collect many different boards, talking boards, spirit boards, because of the artwork. And so I would put you in the category of you appreciate the art form, and maybe you're not a user, maybe you're just somebody that likes to have it and look at it, and that's totally okay. I know a lot of people like that. Now, being a member, a director, and an officer at the Talking Board Historical Society, we all are into the facts about the Ouija board, talking boards, how they started, where they came from, and also we are all collectors. So I'm a user of the board first, and then I got into collecting later. I didn't even start collecting boards till about 20 years ago. And as of this summer, I've been using the board for 53 years. And that was my very first board, as I pointed out earlier, the small one. And then I just had this love affair with Ouija. And by the way, talking about writing books, I never came out and spoke publicly or wrote about my Ouija board experiences until after 40 years of using this tool. And that was my book called The Spirit of Alchemy. Excuse me, The Spirits of Ouija. I wrote quite a few books now. Spirits of Ouija, this one right here. And it didn't come out until 2013. So it was 40 years after using this tool when I wrote about it. And that really was by design, because I wanted to make sure before I said anything publicly, that it was definitely stuff I have researched. I have utilized this tool, understood my channeling abilities, et cetera, before I came out and said stuff publicly.
So you feel very, very confident with your channeling then?
Yeah, I'm channeling with the Ouija board. That's all it is, a tool of channeling. I feel very comfortable and confident in that because of the relationships I've developed within consciousness with different beings that participate in the same field of consciousness. And I can't now, 2026, can't but help but talk about consciousness when I talk about this tool, because I didn't have the words when I was 8 years old when I started this tool. I didn't have the words when I was 20, 30, but around the time I got in my 40s, mid 40s, let's say, I started getting the right words to communicate, I believe, what was happening. And that's around the time I was working on some of my books and bringing them forward, because it was important that I didn't misrepresent Ouija. It wasn't an object that was mysterious, or like, that's what it is really, but it wasn't something that was like woo woo. It's really more like it's a way I display my channeling abilities. And that's where I am now, 2026, to talk about this tool and device. And really, you take the board away, I'm still doing the same kind of messages and readings. In fact, it's faster when I don't have a board slowing me down. Although I'm pretty fast on the board, it is still my favorite way of channeling, although I do channel off the board too.
Do you have a couple special people that you contact with the board?
Yes, people. So here, this is interesting. With the board, I really thought for many years that it was only used to communicate with the deceased, those who had transitioned to spirit. That's what I thought, until I realized in 1989 that I could actually communicate with my higher self, my greater self, my wise self, that Carl Jung talks about, that collective unconscious, the self of who I am. And when I started communicating with that through the board, meaning channeling that part of myself, that's when everything expanded for me. I learned that my clairsenses had really developed greatly during this period of time. That was 1989, for about 4 years. And then it was off the charts in terms of communicating other kinds of non-human intelligences, including the human intelligence. But I went beyond just communicating with the dead as mediumship, but moving into other kinds of connections. I know you and I have spoken about that before too.
Right. That's the part that I really want to emphasize for the people that are going to see this, because I think it's of vital importance, because it is, like you said, it is a tool, just like a spirit box or anything else that's used by us for communications, and whether they're past or they're still here.
Correct.
So, Carol, do you have any questions?
Can you tell us a little bit about the history of Ouija boards?
I would love to. So what happened was there was this movement in Ohio from the spiritualist camps, and they were starting to use apparatuses. They would use their tables, they would use cutting boards, and started writing out numbers and letters, salutations, hello, goodbye, good night, good evening, good morning. And they would use pointing devices, which is not quite a Ouija board yet, but they were beginning to communicate with the idea of a table, of a board. They might have pointed to it with pencils, some kind of apparatus, their fingers. They used alphabet cards. And that was in 1886. Let's say that. So around that same time, there was a W.S. Reed toy company from Massachusetts who sent a board to President Grover Cleveland when he got married in the White House. And he's the only president that got married in the White House, by the way. Kind of a neat story. So they sent it to him, and we know this as a Talking Board Historical Society group because we dug up the old periodicals, the old journals where it was posted. The man who sent it from the W.S. Reed Company to to the president, Grover Cleveland said he wrote the article, he wrote the letter and posted it in the paper, and the president wrote back and said pretty much, I appreciate your ingenuity, dear sirs, but I hardly think I will ever consult the board for desires of the country, kind of thing, he said. And he said it back, and they reprinted that again. It was in the Boston Globe. So we know this actually happened, and that was 1886. Now, what happened was in 1890, 5 businessmen and 1 woman, they got together and decided to ride this wave. I mean, these boards, the spiritualist movement was in its heyday. These boards were flying. People were, flying off the shelves, wanting to use them. So they created something, and it's the contraption we know today as the Ouija board. And the Ouija board consists of a board, obviously, usually they're square, but they could be round nowadays. And then a device that moves. And back then they had caster wheels. It looked more like a automatic writing utensil. And it had really high legs on it. And so it'd move with the fingers on there, and it'd point to the letters and the numbers and spell out things. And that's what constitutes a Ouija board. So what they did was they created this in 1890. They actually sat down at the board with Miss Helen Peters Nosworthy, sat at the board as she was considered a gifted psychic. Sat down at the board, and they said, what should we name this device? OUIJA, it's spelled out. They said, okay, Ouija. And so she and Elijah Bond, the patent attorney of that group of 5 men, she went with him to the Patent and Trademark Office in Washington, D.C., and she sat down at the board, and the main patent officer said, here's how the story goes from the family, said, if you know what my name is, I'll give you this patent. And it's spelled out on the board, his name, verbatim. He said, you got your patent. 1891, they received the patent, and that's when the Ouija board got its start. Now, I must say that the Ouija board is a patent and trademark name. So you have back then, a lot of competing spirit boards or talking boards, because they don't have the Ouija name. So you really can't call them Ouijas. Although we all tend to call all talking boards Ouija boards. That's really incorrect. You'll hear me correct people, because the Ouija is a trademark name, and Hasbro owns it now. But there were so many boards at the turn of the century, late 1800s, 1900s, who tried to compete with Ouija, and they never could. Ouija is the one that remained and still is today the largest selling talking board there is.
Now, when I spelled it out, I use a G.
I saw that, Ouija.
Is that incorrect?
It's a J. It looked like a typo.
Thank you. I make typos.
And I saw that. I thought that was so cute. Ouija. I'm like, and here's the funny thing. People say Ouija or Ouija. Now, you could say, because of pop psychology now, or I should say pop culture now, you could say Ouija. Everybody says it now. It's the vernacular in our culture. It's really pronounced Ouija. Because what they did is they put a box out with the planchette in it, and it said the phonetic spelling is Ouija. They gave the phonetic spelling of it. So we know for a fact it should be pronounced Ouija, although people say Ouija. You'll hear me mostly say Ouija, because that I just try to do it the right way as it came.
Well, that's, you're the authority, so
yes. Well, I'm in the group of the facts about the Ouija board. So, and by the way, the facts of the Ouija board not necessarily have to do with using it. It has to do with the history of it. Who said what? Well, who did what? How did it get started? All those kinds of things. Now, using it is a whole nother story, because we can't prove a lot of things yet in the other dimensions.
So was there any other big period that it really took off besides the spiritualistic movement?
Well, I can tell you this, in the World War I, World War II, especially those days when we had our parlors and people, there's no TV, right? So people would have entertained after having dinner, or they would sit down and pour the Ouija board out. That was like a normal thing. And many homes had a Ouija board. So you saw a huge movement, a huge sale of Ouija boards back then, just because that was entertainment. And it wasn't considered a negative or bad thing. Then you see it even more so when some of the movies start using the boards. You see more people buying them. And in 1966, William Fold Company, at this point, it had gone through several hands, different family names of people who have owned it, the Ouija trademark. William Fold sold it to Parker Brothers. And that little board right there is a Parker Brothers board, circa 1972. And again, this is a William Fuld board. So the William Fuld company sold it to Parker Brothers in 66. In 1967, it sold 1 million copies. After 1 year of Parker Brothers having it, it outsold their largest best-selling game at the time, which was Monopoly. It outsold Monopoly in
Wow.
1967. So you would see a
Wow.
surge of these Ouija boards taking off, and to this day, it's still very popular. And Hasbro also allows, and Parker Brothers did too, other groups to use the licensing of their trademark. So have other companies making Ouija boards. So it's not always just Hasbro, as long as they give the licensing rights to them to do that.
That's really, really amazing. I know that I have been interested since my last time that I was with you, and I'm glad we had this opportunity and are having it now to discuss a lot of this, because it's like, it is history.
It is history. And that's one of the things we do at the Talking Board Historical Society. We really try to preserve history. Miss Helen Peters she was not known to most anybody ever in history until we found some information on her, dug it up. And Robert Murch is really to be credited for that. He's our board of directors, our president of the Talking Board Historical Society. And he dug up Miss Helen Peters and found out who she was. And then, because her name was left off of the 5 men that started it. She was actually one of the original stock owners and the one who was responsible for getting the Ouija board the name and getting it patented. So we did a big tribute to her. She was buried in a plot in a cemetery up in Colorado outside of Denver, and her name wasn't even on the plot, wasn't even listed. It was a family plot. And so we did a thing. We talked to the family. He said, yeah, let's redo it. We gave him a huge gravestone. I mean, it's tall, like 6 feet tall. And we called her the Mother of Ouija. They agreed to it. They liked it. We did a big celebration with her. This was the fall of 2018. And you can go to the cemetery and you can do, she's actually now on the famous female people that are buried there. They have like a whole circuit, like a lecture thing they do, and they walk around the graves and all this. She's there, but it's a beautiful gravestone. So look up Helen Peters online, the gravestone. We did that. We put in plaques where Ouija board manufacturing companies used to be on the East Coast. I mean, they were everywhere. They were in Baltimore. They were in Chicago. I mean, there was not just like one company in Baltimore. There were like 10 or 11. It was huge, you guys. This was huge in the 1890s, early 1900s. It was huge. So we did that. We also did the world's largest Ouija board at the Salem Commons. Rick Schreck, our VP, he's a fantastic artist, created us. It was 99 plywood pieces of board. We made this great armature to set it on. It was shipped in a giant 18-wheeler truck. We put it up in the fall it was October of 2019. Just to let people know a little bit more about the Ouija board. So we do things like this to share. It's fun. It's for the community, but it's also to share the history in fun, exciting ways. Coming up here soon, there will be we had this once before. There will be another expo, I'll say display at the San Francisco airport. Our good friend Gene Orlando, who used to be on the Talking Board Historical Society, he owns museumoftalkingboards.com. He's putting together with another person who is on the Talking Board Historical Society, John Kozak, who owns a Witchboard Museum in Salem. They are putting together a wonderful display in the San Francisco airport on not just Ouija boards, but all kinds of other devices, old tarot cards and stuff that were used for divination tools. So there's some really cool, big things we do when it comes to public outreach.
Wow.
Carol.
That's amazing. How did you start working with the Ouija board?
So great question, Carol. So for me, I've always seen things and heard things. Now I know the words to say. I was clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient as a child, and I couldn't quite understand or explain them. So when I was introduced to the Ouija board at the age of 8, down the street, a couple of my girlfriends, they were sisters, said, "Look, come into our house. We're going to play a game we have." And they pulled out from underneath their bed the Ouija board. And they asked me to use it. I was like, what is this stupid thing? I mean, come on, you push it. Does it really work? And sure enough, I put my fingers on it. They swore they weren't pushing it, and I swore I wasn't either, and it moved. But this is the cool thing. This is what got me hooked. Here it is. Apparently, I didn't know this, but one of the girls who was there, she was a little older than the other girl. She was 10. And they said, well, let's show us who we're talking to right now. I said, who is this? They go, it's our dead sister. And it turns out the 10-year-old had a twin who died shortly after birth. And they were communicating with her. And I said, well, how does this work? Is it goo goo gaga? They go, no, she's our age. She's growing up in the other dimension. They said back then, she's growing up in the afterlife. That is what blew me away. I mean, come on. I run home, and I was a practicing Catholic. I was doing the whole thing with my family, everything. I run home and I go, it's true what we learned in school. The afterlife is real. There's da da da. And I said, my parents said, how do you know this? And I said, well, because we use the Ouija board. And they go, oh. Come on. And I said, well, it's amazing. A child who died is still has a life, and she's growing up on the other side. And they're like, I said, okay, if you don't believe me, Santa Claus will. And I said, I'm asking Santa Claus for a Ouija board now. Sure enough, December 25th, 1973. That's the little board right there. He brought me. That's what started me out. And who knew? It's become my odyssey. I'm very passionate about it because of what I've learned about consciousness along the way. Even though I didn't have the words back then, it was just the amazing things that can happen, enlightening information that could be found when you use it correctly and you're open to it. And where I am with it now, it's not a toy. And even as a child, I saw it as sacred. I didn't have those words, but I saw it as very special. And I saw it as something to really respect. And so my friends would use it with me. And if they got disrespectful, I would put it away. But one of my brothers, was really good at it. And to this day, he's still really good at using it with me. And I just saw it as a respectful tool, because if we're allowed to reach in these other dimensions, oh my gosh. So the Ouija board really became my lifeline back to where I was as a child when I was born, where I could see and hear things other people couldn't see and hear. And I was told to stop doing that if I didn't want to be called crazy when I went to school. And I wanted to be a big girl and go to school. So I put all that away, my imaginary playmate, which was not imaginary, things I saw and heard. And that was my lifeline back. I go, oh, I can do this now with the Ouija board. Ooh, this is cool. So it was something that was really important to me. And it is to this day. It always has been.
So do you feel that when you're using the board, do you use the board alone?
I can. And it's so funny, Carol, you asked that. I didn't start using it alone until after 39 years of using it, right before I wrote the Spirits of Ouija book. And it's only because on the box that little board came in, by the way, collectors, we keep our boxes too. It's part of the collection. The boxes change. On the box, it says, have a partner. Preferably male, female.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I got my brother to do it with me. And that's why I always work with a partner. Yes, I use it alone. I'm not as good as it alone as I am with a partner. If you watch me on YouTube, it's like I do one finger and it's really fast. By myself, it's a little slower. I still get good sentences and messages, but with a partner, it'll go pages. I'll flip pages, and keep writing.
So
Just
do
like
you
automatic
feel
writing.
that it's like your intent that brings through positive information? And if somebody's using it as a disrespectful tool, they'll get negative?
Yeah, I think it really does matter about how we match the energy, and it's our intention for sure, Carol. Absolutely, 100%, if not more. That's the most important part, is your intention, why you want to use this tool, how you want to use it, for what reasons. And I say, have your energy match that you want to reach. Check your baggage at the door. Don't bring it to the session. I'm really always clear about that when I do sessions with people. And I don't just sit down with anybody. When I'm training, I'll sit down with anybody. But when I'm really getting messages that go into my books or whatever I'm using it for purposes of readings and stuff, it's going to be with somebody who actually comes to the board with the same kind of demeanor, same kind of attitude, same kind of energy. And the intention is everything. Because with anything we do in life, if we have a negative intention or a slightly chip on our shoulder intention, we're going to get that same kind of energy back at us. And so I'm really careful about that for sure.
You also do investigations, correct?
I do. Yeah.
Okay, so do you use the boards on investigations?
I do, and I have, not always. So
Okay.
I get actually hired a lot to come to paranormal conventions. And part of my role is to also teach the board or to use it in investigation. And then I will use it mostly there. I find this is what I find. If I'm not with my regular partner or somebody who's experienced using it, it's hard to really believe the messages or really take it seriously. You may
Mhm.
get one or two or three things. So I tend to use myself. I call myself the walking Ouija board. I use myself to read the baseline of energies. And I'm an intuitive, so I do that more than the Ouija board. But I will sit down at the Ouija board with anybody that's interested in doing it and see what messages come through, but not rely on it because we're not seasoned together yet. There's a
Mhm.
whole level of getting good at using the board with somebody, the connection, the vibe, how we work together, and then allowing that the third connection of the energies to work with us.
I kind of feel like that's with any tool that's used, like a spirit box or divination rods or pendulums, oracle cards, tarot cards. You have to have that connection to be able to receive, the answers that you're asking. Have you ever had a negative response come through at any locations?
So never at a location, when you say negative, nothing has ever been like, people told us information and information about how they died or something might seem negative. But I think I know what you're trying to ask. Have I ever had anything negative come through the board?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So one time, again, 53 years, one time. And and I know why, and I'll explain that in a second, why this has worked for me so well. And I kind of alluded to it already. But one time I was using the board, this was in 1986. My brother, who I do the board with every now and then, he was in high school and I was in college. And he said, Karen, let's get that board out. We haven't used it in a few years. And I said, okay, because I was using it with some of my friends. And I said, well, what's your interest right now? And he said, well, in class, we had free time and we had Ouija boards in class. I said, you had Ouija boards in the public school? I was shocked because that
Wow.
never would have happened in my day. He's like, we did. We used it. And he goes, I'm good at it. And it worked really well. And I go, I know you're good at it. So we sat down, started using it. We were getting some great messages. Now, this is only 13 years after I started using the board. I hadn't developed my whole system of guides or bouncers, I call them, master and mistresses of ceremony, your familiar that you would go work with on this tool to help you get good energies and messages coming through.
Right.
So we were using it. Good stuff's coming through. It was working well. But all of a sudden something came through, and I say something because I couldn't identify what it was. It just started. I let it go on for maybe a few spins around the board. Some explicitives were said, negative stuff, nothing like horrible, but I didn't like anything cussing at me. So I picked the board up, took my sleeve, wiped it off. And my brother's like, what are you doing? I go, well, I kind of see it like clearing the field. I just called it that. I said, I don't know what I'm doing. Just seems right to do that. Wiped it off, put it back down. I said, let's start over again. I said, you can't come through anymore. Boom. Immediately, a spirit guide named Wilma Jean, I talk about it in my book, The Spirits of Ouija. She came through and I worked with her for 15 more years after that. And I learned at that moment, if you get a crank phone call on the phone, you're going to hang it up. You get something you don't like, you hang it up. So that I started that immediately right then. I never had that problem ever since that, because I started developing a system of guides. She was probably my second spirit guide in life. And then I work with a group of beings I just call the guides now, who come through every single session when I sit down. They're guides for everybody, really. But I talk about them a lot on my YouTube channel. They help me write my books. They're ethereal beings of source. They've never been born in a physical body. They're light beings. Our apparatus of our eyes can't even see them, but I can feel them. And it's unconditional love. And they come through every time now. But it was a process, Carol, from that moment. And then creating different ways that I could tap into the energies and where it is today. It's definitely been a cumulative experience of just learning how to use this tool.
So these are your guides.
Well, I call them the guides, but they tell me they're not just for me. We all can tap into this infinite wisdom, and they're an extension of source wisdom that's available to all of us. They said the only thing that separates us is that you forgot who you are. You are also an expression of source. You just forgot that. we didn't forget. So we're right here. We are that source energy, all that is. So anybody can tap into that. We have different names for it. Different people at channel might call it Abraham, like Abraham Hicks, right? You might call it different names. Everybody has different names for the same energy. I just happen to call them the guides because I like to keep it just neutral. They go, you can call us whatever you want to call us. One time they said, you can call us, they made up a funny name. I can't think of it right now. They go, whatever you want to call us. But when they first entered to me, it was in 1994, and I was using the board. I was a practicing psychotherapist at this point. I already had worked with channeling my higher self on the board, and that really opened me up to other dimensional fields in consciousness. I'll call it that. And they came through, and there was two energies, and they felt very different. One was definitely masculine, one was definitely feminine, and one was very succinct, staccato in his movements. I say he, could feel like a he. The other one was very flowing and flowery and verbose, very feminine. Beautiful energies. One came through with the sun on the Ouija board, and one came through with the moon. So I called them the sun and moon. And so in this book, I talk about the sun and moon. But it wasn't until I wrote this book when I started calling them really the guides, because they said, once you learn to not separate yourself from the channeling experience, you saw us more as a collective. As your channeling experience grew and you got better at channeling, you could see us as a collective. We were always here as a collective, but you weren't ready to see that. So I call them the sun and moon, and now they're just called the guides. And it's actually a whole group of other energies that are intermixed with them. And I can feel when different ones come through. They have what I call spirit signatures. And on the movement on the planchette, they feel very different. And I can tell who's who. That's developed over many years.
That's great.
I didn't know that there were connections as such with a board like that.
Well, you got to remember, the board,
thought that, but
well, here's the thing. I want people to really understand this. The board is neutral. The board is like your dowsing rods. It's like your tarot. I do tarot, and I also do I Ching, and I've done dowsing, and I do a lot of different things. Pendulum is one of them too. So it's not the tool, it's ourselves. It's ultimately learning to make that connection with the energies.
Right.
I like to call it consciousness. Learning to tune myself and tap into different levels of consciousness through my intentions. I can only say this now where I sit 53 years later. I couldn't say this even 30 years ago. It's come to me in the last 20 years, really understanding this better with the more experience I have. So yes, I love the Ouija board tool, but it's not doing it. It's me believing and knowing that that's a great way to display, and I get to feel the movement of the planchette, which is like feeling the energy of the spirits or whatever's coming through, and I get to show it. And so I got firsthand experience of seeing it, feeling it, knowing it through tactile experience. And literally the planchette pulls and I follow it, and it's an incredible feeling. And then I feel this unconditional love coming through me every time I use it now because of the guides. They're saying, yeah, tell them. They're here. They're always here. They go, we're always here. And so they taught me a lot about just consciousness. And so they go, we have to talk about this, not just the tools. Beautiful. I mean, I love my Ouija boards. I love my tarot cards. I love my I Ching. I love my divination tools, but it's not the tool, it's ourselves. And as you said earlier, Carol, it is a relationship we build with that, meaning we enjoy this tool. You trust that tool.
Right.
Like when I do readings, and if I'm reading off the board, which I do all the time, and I just read off the board, when I get information, I don't filter it. I say it instead of going, I don't understand that. I mean, I can't do that. It's not fair for the person who asked the question. So I give them information to the querent. It's not for me to diagnose or say what it means. It's to give it. So I've become really good at stepping aside and allowing the messages to come. And the same with this tool, with the Ouija board, just allowing the energy to flow. And it's a tactile experience. Just another way to bring messages forth.
Oh,
that's amazing.
That's a great explanation.
Thank you. I know it's a lot, but I can't talk about this very simply anymore.
No.
And I haven't been able to since I came out in the public talking about this the last couple. How long has it been? About almost 20 years, 19 years. I have to talk about it on this level because that's what it is. It is just a way to focus our energy and to make that connection with consciousness. We don't need tools. We need ourselves. But tools are fun, as I said, and I tell you, as I said to you, I love the experience of the movement, of the feeling I receive, of the pulling. And then I go, wow, this is really a combination of efforts happening here, but the tool is not, it's not magical. We are the magical beings that can reach into I'll call it the matrix of consciousness, the field in which we all participate.
So you went ahead and started out with your first book, and that was the one on the Ouija.
No. My first book is The Spirit of Creativity. Now, interesting story about this book. This book came out in 2012. So I wrote it actually in the 90s, late 90s. I was a practicing psychotherapist, and this book is really, I was an art psychotherapist where I used a lot of healing modalities such as artistic expressive ways to heal people, help them heal themselves, I should say. I wasn't healing anybody, they were healing themselves. So I put the techniques in here, but on a spiritual level, to tell everybody that it's not about learning to be creative. You already are a divine spark of source. You already are creative. I got this channel, the book channel to me, along with my own work from one of my guides, Mary Angel. Mary Angel said, you cannot mention in this book my name, the Ouija board, because you could lose your license. You'd be called a quack. I mean, you were not allowed to talk about this stuff in the 90s, okay? I was doing compartmentalized Ouija board in the vacuum, psychotherapy over here. But this book bridged the gap. And as soon as I came out talking about this book, people said, well, we want to hear about the Ouija, how you wrote this book. That's when the following year, The Spirits of Ouija came out to explain it.
Okay. That makes perfect sense.
It does. Yes. No, the reason why I didn't publish the book right away, because it was ready in the 90s. Back then, you had to go through publishing companies, mail them your hard copies. I have 3 publishing companies. There was a big one looking at it. I went through a massive divorce. I'll just say that. When I was divorced, I just fell apart. Be honest. I fell apart. I couldn't pursue it. They don't pursue you. You got to pursue them. And they said, give me some more chapters. And I was doing the best I could. I had to put everything away. My life 100% changed. It was a Saturn return. You know how Saturn returns are. It was my first Saturn return at that point. So I just put it away and just started doing other things. I was always doing the Ouija board. And then it came to me. I said, it's time to get that book back out. You were talking, now we're like 12, 13 years later, brush it off, tighten it up, and published it. And that way you can publish now through Amazon, print on demand. You don't have to go through all the channels, which I was originally going through. So it was timely, and it made sense that it came out later. It really does, because then I could really talk about the Ouija board aspect where I couldn't. Now, I was a practicing psychotherapist. I had people that knew what I did who were also clinicians in the different hospitals where I did my contract work, or in private practice as well. And they'd say, well, Karen, can I come to your house and meet my spirit guide? Can I meet my angel? Would you get me a message? So I was known in Austin, Texas. That's where I was practicing to do this work. And I had other clinicians come to me, hush, hush. And
so you were half in the closet and half out.
Correct. Mostly in the closet, but I would come out periodically. I was always using the Ouija board throughout my whole life, but I was in the closet for many, many years, you guys, and didn't really come out until my very first radio interview. This is weird. It was coast to coast, believe it or not. Coast to coast.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
That's really amazing.
It was very amazing. That's an amazing story in itself.
Well, you know, as soon as you say coast to coast, you're dealing with mainstream.
Mm-hmm. I know.
Right.
And Gaia, right?
And that's validation.
Work on Gaia.
And that's validation right there.
Well, it was great synchronistic things have really happened a lot in all of our lives, right? We could all talk about synchronicities in our life. And this was a whole synchronistic movement for me, because you guys, this is not what I do for a living. This is more of a fun thing, and I love it, and I take it seriously. I actually have a telecom company in LA, in California, that I run. And to this day, I'm still doing consulting work. I was also worried that maybe my clients or future clients would see that and go, So I had to stay in the vacuum back then too. But when I came out in 2012, I was still at the heyday of running my business. And I just said, you know what? I am who I am. And I'm not going to hide that this is what I do anymore, because it's important. People want to know. So here's a funny story. It was 1997. I was still living in Oregon at the time, and I used to listen to Art Bell late at night. This is way before George Norrie was on the show. And they were talking, Art Bell didn't like the Ouija board. He would talk about it all the time, but he didn't like it. And neither does George, so he says. So anyway, I hear people talking negatively about the Ouija board, and I go, that's enough of that. And I'm writing my book, The Spirits of Creativity. And I call up. They answer the phone. I go, well, I have a whole different perspective on the Ouija board. They go, hold on, ma'am. They put me on hold, and guess what? The show ended. They go, we're sorry, but the show's over. Call back another time. I never did. But then I end up being on Coast to Coast with George Norrie in 2012. It's 5 years later. I guess it was 5 years later. Yeah. No, 12 years later. I guess it was 15 years later. I'm actually on Coast to Coast, and then I go into Guy and all that other stuff after that. I think everything is really about timing, and maybe everybody wouldn't be ready for that, to hear
So
that.
you feel it was worth the wait?
You know what I do? Back then I didn't understand that, but I do because talking about this subject, people want to either marginalize it or demonize it. And so I think people have a little more information now because of all the TV shows, because the shows like Your Wonderful Show here, where we're talking about the paranormal or the metaphysical or supernatural. And back then that wasn't really there. Dreamland and Coast to Coast was what was doing it. There wasn't a whole lot of stuff out there. And I think I probably would have got a lot of hate mail. And I remember the very first time I was on Coast to Coast, I got a lot of hate mail. I got a lot of love mail too, but I got a lot of hate mail that I must be a idolatress, or I'm a demonologist, or I'm a demon worshiper, because they can't handle somebody talking positively about this tool. So
I was going to ask you, why do you think that is, that they bring in that, the talk about demons when it comes to a Ouija, but they don't do it when it comes to a pendulum or
Thank you.
dowsing rods.
Thank you. Or a K2 meter or a Frank's box.
Right.
You're right.
You're still connecting with spirits or other beings.
Carol, I really think it has to do with so when the Ouija board first came out, here's the facts. There was always negativity associated with it. It's a mysterious tool. The manufacturer of this tool purposely didn't put too much in the box, like what you can experience, or then you'll be mesmerized by the messages. You'll enter into other dimensions. They really didn't talk about how it should be used or what to do with it on purpose, because it makes your mind wander. And people would use this tool and use it as a scapegoat to commit heinous crimes, such as murder. This happened from the beginning, the conception of this tool. And so then you get into Hollywood, which just kind of amplified that message. Mm-hmm. And then people go, well, I did a Ouija board. And well, yeah, use any kind of tool, and you're drinking libations and you're being stupid and you're messing around with it. You don't take it seriously. Yeah. You're going to be met with the fears of your mind can manufacture a lot of things out here, and you can attract a lot of those things back to you. Right. And I think it's what happens with this tool, even as I'm wearing a Ouija board shirt. This is what it is. It's like, it's one of the most misunderstood tools. And for me to come out and explain it this way, people are like, oh no, they're like, you don't know what you're talking about. I go, dude, I've been using it 53 years and I've had really amazing results. I mean, mind altering, mind life affirming, incredible messages come through that have changed the trajectory of many people's lives in positive ways. So it's not that. It's not the message. It's always the person using these tools. And people don't want to hear that. They want to blame something else, blame the Ouija in their closet, in the attic, the Ouija that was in their house 3 years ago, but that energy is still there, instead of saying, well, maybe I myself am attracting the energies. Maybe myself has fears that I'm attracting the fears to me, and it's amplifying.
You can watch a horror movie and bring something through from the electronic screen.
Correct.
It happens so often when Greg does a show when Spirit Connect on Wednesday night, where we do double Estes, and we're all across the country. Mm-hmm. But like anything that your intent, what you're putting out is what you're going to attract back.
Yep. That's it.
It seems like even you don't even have to voice those words. You could just think it and it will happen.
So you are, Karen, you are actually beyond protection then.
Okay,
Correct?
I this okay, so let me explain that. So I always tell people, and I write about it in my books, find what works for them. If the word protection is what they want to use, I think that's great. If it's getting centered, grounded, that's great. You have to get in that frame of mind to receive spirit. And so I ground, I loosely call it protection now. I used to always call upon protection. I always have. And my incantation prayers calls upon that too. However, I feel like I'm protected. I feel like I trust life, and I'm not fear based. I'm not afraid of anything that goes bump in the night. I actually welcome it, and I see a lot of things. I see and hear and feel a lot of things, and it doesn't scare me. I used to be afraid of the dark till about the age of 32ish. It had to do with some of the things that happened to me as a child. Visitations in my room from different beings of different levels of consciousness. We'll call it that. At this point, it's pretty far out there, and it scared the bejeebies out of me. And nobody could put it into a context to help me. My family couldn't even help me. They thought I was just having bad nightmares, but I was literally afraid. And when I finally took it back upon myself through my own empowerment, I'm not afraid of my own energetic field, and I put it in my energetic field. And so I feel protected as I go about every day. Do I ask for extra protection? Heck yes. Do I wear certain crystals and stuff? Heck yes. I mean, I will use this energy when I go into a board meeting, a business meeting. I might have a crystal under my blouse or under my suit. It's like it makes me feel empowered. If you get yourself to an empowered place, not a fear-based place, that's when you can use these kind of tools. And I do think it does mean grounding yourself to the earth, literally. And I do it through breathing exercises and meditation exercises.
In all your years of communicating via the board, have you ever got an inkling that you were talking to something besides spirit, like up above?
When you say spirit, you're talking about like deceased people?
Aliens.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I have
Okay.
several occasions, and interdimensional beings,
Okay.
cryptids.
Yep.
Sky people.
What one of my favorite things to do, and this is pulling it back in a little bit, is talking to animals. And I think we spoke about this before. Maybe we might not have gotten there because there's always like there's so much stuff to talk about in the beginning. Animal communication, and that started for me in January 26, 1994. When my first cat that was very much alive came through the Ouija board. That was after I had already started talking to my higher self for about 4 years. And the angelic kingdom started coming through. Then other dimensional beings started coming through, including extraterrestrials, which I wasn't ready for at that time in the early 90s. And then the sun and moon, the guides came through. And then all of a sudden, there's one of my cats starts coming through. So it was progression. And I can tell you the progression happened because I learned to connect with my higher inner wisest self first. I wasn't going outside to here, there, above, below. I was going here.
Right.
Which also, exists. Our higher self is like our spark from creator from all that is. It goes everywhere. I made that connection purposely with some of my friends. We did it for 4 years. And that allowed me to plug into that outlet. I call it that my guides call it plugging into the outlet of the higher self is where you can really get centered and grounded in yourself. That in itself makes protection because now you're tapped into that source energy field. You're there, and I can feel it right now as we talk about it. I'm already like right there plugged in. And then all the other beings, which I wasn't like, oh, let's see what other crazy being I could talk to. They just started coming in, and I just allowed it to come in as they came. And we just spent time. My friend, two friends of myself just spent time doing that. And when the animals came in, it really opened my mind to, wow, what other sentient being consciousness can we tap into? And my cat that came through the first time was not dead. He was very much alive, sitting right there watching us use the board.
So it was his higher self
Yep.
connecting with your higher self.
Pretty much is how it works. So here's the story. So I'm sitting there using the board with one of my partners, and we're talking to Mary Angel, and we're getting messages because Mary Angel was the one that brought in most of the messages in the beginning until I developed further to allow other beings to come in, if that makes sense. So she goes, somebody wants to talk to you. And I'm thinking, all right, I talk to all different kinds of beings, deceased, etc. Bring them in. She goes, oh no, this one's different. This is all being spelled out on the board. Okay. I'm like, all right. The planchette changes, goes a little slower, goes a different direction. I could feel the energy has shifted already. And it spelled out, Hermes cat, I love you. Now, my big fat pumpkin orange cat sitting in a chair, we used to sit there in this chair and watch me at the board. By the way, the cats, the animals love this energy because we're focused, we're bringing in good energy, we're in the love vibration. One cat's sitting like right here as I'm doing my interview because she loves this energy. So I was like, what, Mary Angel? She goes, I told you, you might not believe this. I said, well, do it. My cat just spoke to me, meow, meow. She goes, kind of. It's more like images and feelings, and we're interpreting it and helping it higher self part. I like to call it the oversoul of the cat. Spell it out on the board because that's the tool you're using. When I do animal communication off the board, it's different. It's feelings, it's sensations, and I can tell you about that in a moment too. So Hermes, who is very much alive, began communicating with me, and is the other cat I had too, Bill William, would communicate with me too. So when I wrote this book, I had two different cats, and I put their voices in this book because they were telling me all kinds of things about their past. That I rescued them from the situation was not good. Truly, they rescued me, I would say. All animals rescue ourselves. But anyway, I put animal communication there because that's kind of where you start there before you go out there to cryptids and all these other interdimensional beings. It kind of starts there and it becomes more believable. So fast forward, now we're the year is 2018. I'm on my second set of cats, Jack and Panzer. Panzer was a black cat. Jack was a tuxedo cat. They were half brothers. I got them from a situation that was bad. They were abused, and I took them to my home. And Jack, it was a horrible story. He would just shake in the corner for months on end until finally he jumped in my lap one day. And all of a sudden, I'm like, okay, he arrived. We could be friends. He started talking to me. I was petting him. I'm not on the board at all. And he says, I want to write a book. I go, what? Like, where's this coming from? I heard, I want to write a book. Because he knew I was already writing books at the time. I think I had 3 books already written at that time. Yeah, 3 books were already out. And he said, I could be an author too. I'm like, okay, I'm petting him. All right. So I'm like hardly able to trust this process. I get on the Ouija board with my partner. I go, we got to talk to Jack. So Jack said, I'm going to write a book. And he said, I'm going to tell you, he gave me 3 versions of the story. One was about the time he was abused. The second one was about him and really he's telling people not to be cruel to cats. And the third one was this beautiful story called When Cats Had Wings. He said, you've always seen me as an angel in your life. He said, so I want to write a story about that. So he inspired the story. And I said, well, Jack, you got to give it to me. He goes, well, you're not quite ready. So 2018, now we're getting into 2022. He died in 2018. I spoke to him before he died. 2018, he dies. He finishes the story in the afterlife. I said, am I ready to write it? And he goes, you are. The next morning I woke up with a dream and I heard these words repeating in my head. And it went like this. Not too long ago, but in your recent past, lived a hierarchy of angels known as the winged kitty cats. I was like, what? And I put, you guys, it's crazy. This stuff happens. I put a pencil down. I go, it's coming. He told me he was going to come the night before. I'm doing the board. I'm writing this down. Look what it became. It's my 4th book. When Cats Had Wings. Karen Dahlman and Jack. It's a beautiful story. So he gave it to me and it flowed out of me in its poetic fashion. So it's our consciousness merging his story and I put it into poetry form, but it was his story. And it's a story really about helping a sick girl and when cats had wings and back in the day, and there's with the sick girl and there's Hermes. Hermes is this one right here. But Jack is the storyteller in this book. He goes, I don't want to be the star. He goes, I want to be the storyteller. He goes, I'm going to tell the story, but he goes, and there's Hermes again, who first taught me animal communication. He goes, but I want your other cats to be in the book too. There he is telling the story. I had the best artist. Maz Farzan is fantastic. Anyway, this book came out in 2023 and it is selling all over the world. You get paperback, inexpensive, and Kindle also on Amazon. And this is the one that Barnes & Noble, and you can also get it on, well, you can get it almost a bookseller now. It's a charming story. It's written for the young at heart, adults and children, because it's really, everybody that reads it tells me they cry. Every time I read it, I
Wow.
still cry because it's so touching. It's not about his death. It's about how animals really come to rescue us, and not just cats, but all the pets we have in our life. We're not rescuing them. They're rescuing us, and it's a beautiful story. And just Jack is delightful. And I talk to Jack on the board still. He's been gone now since 8 years now. 8 years, and he says my book's doing well, isn't it? I go, it's doing well around the world. This book is selling around the world.
That's
Awesome.
wonderful.
It's
Isn't
amazing.
it? It's amazing what you could do with this tool. It's just consciousness. It's just learning a way to tap into the consciousness. You don't need this tool to tap into consciousness. It's just was my pathway because it was something I used always. All these years using it, it's like I've become really good at using it. But like I said, Jack started talking to me when I was petting him. I wasn't even using the tool then. It's just that this is my best way, not my only way, but probably my best way of getting the information from consciousness.
You are without a doubt the best spokesman
Oh,
for Ouija
Yes,
on the
definitely.
planet.
well,
And
I think it's misunderstood. I want to set the record
I
straight.
and you've done an amazing job with
Thank you.
everything you've done, including and now you got me where I'm going to have to go ahead and really look into the books. And
I agree.
and it's not, I'm taking it positively because you are so positive about your approach of what you did from the beginning on your life.
Yeah.
Everything was based the same way, which is this same kind of thing that what we do, in our groups. And, we have some great people that we work with, and it's great to know that we have another friend.
Mhm. Thank
That's
You know what I mean?
amazing.
And that's where this all lies. You mentioned the spirit of alchemy,
Mm-hmm.
and then it says sacred teachings or the sacred reunion.
Yep. Secret Teachings of the Sacred Reunion. That is really about doing this work off the board. Although I reference a lot of my, I call it esoteric Ouija work, I do talk about the guides in there, the sun and moon. I call them the guides at that point in that book that came out in 2015. When I first entered the world of going to paranormal conventions, I went to WouijaCon, was the first one I went to. And that book came out, I just turned 50. It was my celebration of my 50 year on Earth. So it came out 10 years after the book about spirits of Ouija, 4 decades of communication came out, because it was about now, how do you take this off the board and do this work? How do you connect your spirit guides? What ultimately are we doing in life? Are we not trying to connect the divine feminine and masculine within ourselves? Are we not trying to go through the alchemical process to reach that source energy and become one with it? Are we not trying to make that connection? And that book teaches you how to do it in real practical ways. And I share a lot of stories in there from my own experience that are applicable to other people too.
Okay, what is your opinion of the two boards I have as far as me finally taking one out?
Well, if you have the one that lights up, it's clunky. Don't use that one, because I remember I have that same one, and it's cool. It lights up, but the board is really rough. It gets stuck on it. Get one that slides smoother. It'll be easier to feel the subtle sensation movements. Now, if you're going to start using this tool, and by the way, I want your whole audience to understand this. I'm not here to go use the Ouija board. I'm here to talk about consciousness and my way of tapping it. That's what I'm here to do. But when people ask, what do you recommend? I would say, get the board out that works the smoothest. And by the way, your planchettes, when they get rough, you can put little felt pads in the bottom, the kind you buy to put on artwork. I just put new felt pads in mine. The little one back here is the original one I got in 1973, that little one. And I put new felt pads on it. And I have to do it like every 10 years. It needs new felt pads. So you want it to work with ease. Now, I suggest you ask to speak to your higher self or a spirit guide. Don't go into investigations with the pressure of, I got to connect to something here. And my number one pet peeve is quit asking yes, no questions. Ask instead, I want to speak to my higher self. What is your message? It's called a talking board, so it talks and it spells. It's not a yes, no, or a pendulum board. It is a talking board. So allow it to spell. And if you get beyond that, a lot of people just get stuck in yes, no. They'll never progress to the level that I'm talking about here to get those divine messages, because you're limiting your experience by yes, no. So really ask open-ended questions. And I would start with your higher self and or spirit guide. Now, higher self, I say, because it's not woo-woo, it's not weird. It's just talking to your best self inside yourself. So your subconscious mind comes into play. Who cares? That's fine. That's great. Talk to your unconscious self. You're not going to realize you're pushing it, and maybe you're not pushing it. I mean, I'm not opposed to science saying it's the ideomotor effect, which basically says your brain controls the fine muscle movements in your body, and you're unconsciously moving it across the board. I'm okay with that, because I'm getting information that there's no way in hell I'd even know, and getting stuff that's helping my life. I do believe that I am connected with other beings, though, also. I think of my higher self, it's a combination of both. It's that part of me that's beyond my corporeal existence that can communicate through spiritual channels, but it's also me. So I believe it's a little bit of both. When I'm communicating with the spirit guides and I'm channeling, I believe it's me making that connection, and it's coming through in a display of touch, tactile sensation. So start those two levels, and then it's not woo-woo, it's not scary. It's just like, hey, I'm going to sit down and have a conversation with myself or my spirit guide. I'm going to meet my spirit guide. I'm going to meet my higher self.
Well, the only concern that I had was the fact that I don't know who these boards belong to.
Doesn't matter. If you want to cleanse them, clear them.
Okay.
Do that. There was a period of time, anytime I get a board, I like ceremonial things. I like rituals, because rituals kind of enliven our lives. Rituals make us feel connected to something. And so I love putting mine out in the full moon. I've even put crystals on it, even put some dirt on mine. Just different ways to ground it. So whatever you're doing, people will say, well, Karen, what do I do? What's my techniques? I go, what are you doing right now that's working for you? Are you a medium? Are you a psychic? Do you read tarot cards, oracle cards? Do you do something else? Do you do K2? What do you do? How do you prepare for that? Bring that to the tool. Clear off your tool. Ceremony, like I did that one time with my arm. I said, okay, I'm not talking to you anymore. You're gone. And I knew that in my mind when I said it. Click, click, you're gone. I hung up on you. Do that. So it's meaningful for you. You're not trying to bring something new that doesn't resonate with you. Over the years, I studied so many different kinds of spiritual techniques. And as a therapist, I learned all kinds of things for therapy, and then hypnosis and just art therapy and all these things I was doing. But meditation, and then I also studied Native American spirituality. I used to work on a reservation. So I just pull all these things in, and now they're just so integrated in what I do when I use any kind of spiritual work. And you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Use what works for you. And of course, my book, Spiritual Ouija, does give you 13 steps of how to prepare if you don't really have a place to start, or you kind of want to add some new things to it. I give you a breathing exercise. I give you a circuitry exercise. I give you a statement, a prayer, all those things of how to ground, just to prepare yourself. So you feel like you're entering into, here's the key, you guys, a sacred space. Do your work in the sacred space. And when you're done, leave it and go back to the mundane. Sacred back to the mundane. And that's how I did therapy. I created a safe place for people to come work with me. And when they were done, I wrote my notes. That was my way of closing out the session. Goodbye, here's your homework. They would leave, close the door, and leave, and they go do their stuff. We separated. We had a way to come in sacredly and had a way to leave it. That's what's important here. Set the time aside. Don't be taking phone calls during it. Don't be petting animals. Don't be answering your spouse. Don't be cooking dinner. Sit down for 20 minutes. And that's just give it that timer goes off. You're done. Didn't move. That's okay. Come back a day or 2 days later. Another 20 minutes. I've had friends who really wanted to use this tool, and they would sit at for 3 months. I had a person that sat at for a year, but sat there religiously over so many minutes. I would say 20 minutes, 25 minutes, 30 minutes, once or twice a week until it worked for them, because they were using it alone. If you can start with a partner first, it's easier because you can feel the movement. You're going to allow yourself to let go. Because if you're yourself, you're going to go, oh, I'm pushing it. Oh, I'm pushing it. It was a struggle for me, trust me, to go on my own. With somebody else, it was like, okay, it's moving. I'm going to follow it. And I go, okay. It's just easier. If you can sit down with somebody, you guys, Greg, Carol, if you're going to do it, it'd be easier to do it that way to start. And then you feel the feeling. Then you could probably go off on your own. But it's a subtle feeling. It's like learning any kind of technique in the supernatural, being a medium or a psychic or reading cards. It's a subtle feeling you get, just direct channeling, whatever. It's not demonstrative.
Right.
It doesn't come to demonstrative at all. It's subtle. And you go, oh, it's moving, but I think I'm pushing it. It's okay. Question it, but continue on. It'll be gibberish at first. The messages don't come out legitimate, full on like they do for me now. And even when I was younger, they didn't come out. Well, they came out pretty well. I couldn't believe how well. I think I was made for this tool. I think I was a walking Ouija board when I came to this world. I was made for this tool. But not everybody has that experience. And I know because people reach out and tell me this. And I watch people sit at the tool and have struggles with it. And I know people who work at it right away too.
Wow.
That's a lot.
Perfect. That's perfect.
Good.
At what age do you think would be a good age to start using any type of tools?
Yeah. Okay. So this is what I say. Parents are responsible to raise their kids, and we want them to have, a good mind, a good head on their shoulders. And I always say, instead of saying, letting them use a tool, say, what is it about the tool you like? Start a conversation. So you want to do tarot cards, oracle cards, or you want to work with the kids probably don't know I Ching, but you want to work with dowsing rods or pendulum. Mm-hmm. I say, what do you like about that? What's that about for you? Oh, I think it's pretty because it's a crystal. Okay, cool. But if they go, well, I think you could talk to spirits. Say, well, all right. Well, who is it you want to talk to? They may go, well, I just want to know what happened to grandma when she died. I mean, it might just be a conversation. Now, I got it at the age of 8. And I didn't have any issue with it. And my parents obviously didn't either, but they didn't think it worked. Oh, they know it works now.
Right.
But so I think do this with a kid. Have a conversation. And the maturity level of a child. If they're going to do some stupid stuff with it, I mean, with anything, and scare themselves, it probably isn't right. Or you get a board that you two use together, only together, because you want to explore the paranormal. Or maybe they just want to have a conversation about it. And a lot of kids just want to try something for a moment, and then they're done.
Then they put it away.
Correct. So I would say have them make their own. Don't go out and buy a Ouija board. I make so many boards on the fly. I only had that one little board back there until I started collecting maybe 20 years ago. I'd be at somebody's house and they said, Karen, let's do Ouija board. I could be in my 20s or my 30s. And I would be like, all right, do you got an old pizza box? You got a piece of cardboard? Do you have a double old fashioned? Do you have a shot glass? And I would just, away we'd go. I just write the letters down, the numbers, put my hands on there, and it worked just like a regular Ouija board. So I would have a kid, well, let's create your own Ouija board. What do you want to put on it? You want pictures on it? Cute pictures? What do you want to put on there? Rainbows, butterflies, and let them become an art project. And they might just get so caught up in that, they're kind of done. You see?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's fun.
And it also gives you a better connection to it also if you're making the board.
Yes.
And they're younger and you work with them doing it.
That solidifies the whole idea.
It becomes a great project to share with your child.
Right.
Yeah. And you know what? It becomes this bonding thing. And maybe you make one with them. And then maybe you decide just to hang them on the wall and you just look at them. Maybe it's just really have a conversation with the youngins. Have a conversation. And my parents had a conversation with me, which they were like, oh, it doesn't work. Here's your board. Santa Claus board. But if they had a conversation, tell you what, I still would have got one. I would have saved my babysitting money when I got older, and I would have gone and bought one. I know I would have.
That's the difference between having an open mind and a closed mind.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people that sort of raised us pushed us in a different direction. Even though there were times that we all said the same things as what we're saying right now. We didn't, at that time, we didn't understand our spiritualism.
Right. No.
But,
no.
We understood there was a reason behind it and there was a curiosity, just like there is with everything else. And I just enjoy it immensely. And I am very, very glad that you were here tonight because you've really opened my eyes again. And, and I, between the time you were here, that's why I asked you about the time element of when you were here the last time, because there were certain things that weren't there anymore. And you brought it all back to tuition, if you want to say.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the important part. And it's the important part for anybody that ends up watching the show.
Right.
Is they need to come to that realization.
Well, I honestly had some trepidations because of things that happened to me when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in a very haunted home that had a lot of negative beings in it. And I did have a bad experience with a board. But I honestly think it was the person that I was doing it with, and I should have known better.
But you were
But
young
I
though
was
too.
young.
You were
Yeah.
young.
Yeah.
And I think again, I was using it in the vacuum, and if my friends got freaky on it, I would just put it away. I just saw it as
Right.
so special to me. I just love my Ouija board. And by the way, that planchette back there, it still has the brass tab in it. We moved. I was in the military. My dad was in the military. We moved every 3 to 4 years. I made sure that board was packed up nicely. There was a tape on the brass tab, so I never lost that brass tab. It's intact. That board looks fantastic. It was so special to me. As special as maybe a piece of artwork or one of my stuffed animals or doll. It was so special to me. And so I was treated it that way. And I go back to what you said about, you were saying earlier, Greg, about, maybe the way we were raised and stuff. It's true. I think our parents did the best way they could, given what they understood or didn't understand. And there was their own fears, but they were trying to protect us. And so I've really come to the place where, my parents said, stop talking about that being you see. His name is Dacky. Stop talking about these visitors and But I realized that was kind of scary to them, but they also wanted to protect me when I went to school.
Right.
And not be made fun of. So I understand where it's coming from now, but as a child, I was like, well, I'm just not going to tell you anymore. I'm just going to go do this on my own. And I'm kind of glad I did, because it made me work in a vacuum. I didn't have fears. They had the fears. And somehow I just kind of realized that was their problem and not mine. So the Ouija board saved me. It was my lifeline back to how I was born, with the ability to see and hear and feel other energies around me when other people said they weren't there. So it was my lifeline, and I treated it that way. I was like, wow, this is really special. So I think that was that relationship I had with my tool. We talked about relationship with your tool. But where it is now, it's all about just exploring consciousness, exploring however I can. And this tool has been fantastic for me to do that.
Awesome.
Do you feel like each board has a different feeling to it?
So funny you asked that. Actually, every single board I use, doesn't matter what the graphics are, who made it, round, square, small, big, paper. It's the guides that come through at this point, and they all feel the same to me, because it's their energy. It's what I'm connecting with. And even when I use my tarot oracle cards, it's, you trust your divination tool. You trust what you receive. You don't go, oh, that's the wrong card. You have to trust the process. It's the same thing. I feel the connection first, and then I use the tool. I feel the connection.
Yes.
When I was younger, it was more about the tool. And I'm saying young, like 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, maybe to teenage. Then after that, I started feeling the feelings. And I was like, no, that's the connection, not the tool.
Right. I always ask for the highest good of that person, the information that comes through for them when I'm doing a reading, so that nothing, that's could harm them would come through. And I wouldn't even say something in that respect anyway, because I would want it for their greatest good. Right. Depending upon how the information comes through, you could, like soften the information so it doesn't harm them, I guess. But the best way is, it's always to do the best good.
I agree. And when you ask for that, like you said, that's your intention for the reading, which I do as well. I find that the energy, the messages come through. I'm more on that level.
Is there any events or anything that you want to talk about?
Well, I had a bunch. I did a bunch already this year. So nothing I have really. Well, I am working on a book on consciousness. It's about the stuff we're talking about tonight. It has to be the next level of this work. But here's what I want to share with the audience. I'm doing a whole lot of talk. The conversation we had today, right now, This is a lot of what I'm talking about on TikTok. I just joined TikTok recently. And then I'm doing my YouTube again, YouTube shorts and YouTube videos. So I'm sharing a lot of this kind of information. And right now I just went through a whole series of channeling, just how to channel without the board. And now I'm moving right into the Ouija board and how to do some of this stuff I'm talking about. And the conversation, I think I have 70, 80 videos I just released in the last, I don't know, 5 months. It's just, they're like 2 minutes or less. Real quick things just to kind of help people engage in the conversation with me and have this kind of conversation. So that's what I'm doing right now. And then I'm working on a book on consciousness.
So are you going to do conferences?
I have no conference scheduled at this point, but it's funny. I get calls and I'm like, next thing I know, I'm speaking at a conference. You just never know.
I want to just say this has been awesome. And
thank you. Yeah, for me too.
If I forget because I get too busy and you get a wild thought and say, boy, I'd like to go ahead and talk again. Like I really enjoy talking to you.
Thank you.
So did I.
Thank you, Carol.
And this is the kind of thing that makes the chemistry happen.
Mm-hmm.
So, as far as that's concerned, if you get a wild hair, just drop me a note and we'll get you back on.
That sounds great, Greg. I appreciate it.
Ahead of the schedule of where I'd be, because I really enjoy talking to people that are more diverse, as far as the field is concerned. Mm-hmm. And this is the thing that makes it happen, for a lot of people. And I'm glad that you were here tonight to go ahead and show them the way.
Well, it's a great format. I appreciate you guys having me on. It was wonderful conversation, great questions, great points you brought up. So we went all in, and there's just so you know, we still hit the top of the iceberg at the tip. There's still so much more to talk about.
I understand.
Oh, sure.
It's crazy. This has been, this is my lifelong journey. I never would have thought at 8 years old when Santa Claus gave me that board, I'd be doing this forever in my life. And I will because I just love this tool and I love collecting. I love them. I love the boards.
I have like 70 Oracle decks.
See, you're like me, but you're with the.
I can't stop.
I might have 16 to 20 Oracle Tarot decks. I do like those too, but Ouija's my all time. But yeah, you're like me. You're like me. Yeah. You find your tool you love, and it's artwork. That's why you love those decks. I love.
And it's funny when I pull cards, I only use the cards that jump. And yeah, I don't pull them out myself. I let whatever ones jump out are the ones that I use.
I love that.
Every time I do a reading for someone, I see something different that I had never seen before in certain cards.
Absolutely. I say
it's so amazing.
You're like, I never even saw that because you're reading for the highest good of that person. So new information comes through and you're trusting the process. The key to channeling is trusting the process and the discernment and moving your filters, opening them up so your ego doesn't get involved. That's so much what channeling's about. This is what I'm talking about on my TikTok channel. Come join me.
That's great.
We will.
It's so much fun.
It is.
Especially thinking outside the box.
Loki Phillips had a quick question, and you already answered it, but it was, where can we get her books?
On Amazon. Check out Amazon. I know Barnes & Noble has them too. Amazon's the easiest place to get them. All of them are there. Yeah. Check it out. Okay. And come join me, Karen A. Dahlman. I'm all over social media. You go to my YouTube channel. I think I have 200. I think I got 280, maybe 300 videos there. I don't know. Got shorts. I got regular videos. I talk about Ouija or interview people. It's all about this topic, you guys, from myself and from others who do it with me. You can see me using the board on there and getting messages as well.
Well, Karen, it's been a great show, and I'm very glad that you were here tonight and you made us all feel welcome.
Well, thanks for having me, you guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you everybody for joining and tuning into the show. It's great.
It's great.
Blessings.
Thank you. And if you want to wait for a minute, and we'll talk after I close.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yep, that's great. I'll wait. Bye, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Okay. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.